Shock Piece: The Search for Freedom, a novel by C. Nguyen. Chapter 26: Nguyen, the Cafe Vendor, and Rural Oppression. Placing an old army tarpaulin on top of his pile of second-hand wares as a last gesture, Dum said, "Bye, Nguyen." But he looked at the sky and added as an afterthought, "I'll be back tomorrow morning if it is not raining heavily." Nguyen was waiting for him to lead his wobbly bike out before she closed the iron gate. "See you tomorrow, Dum," she called with a bright smile, the corners of her dark lips curving up charmingly. "I don't think it's going to rain tomorrow." Nguyen rejected his forecast like an experienced meteorologist. She was the firstborn in a family of 6 girls, a typical number of siblings in the Vietnam of the time. Traditionally, Nguyen had to help her parents bring food to the table and look after her younger siblings. Because she could not leave to seek her own happiness when her family still needed her, she missed many chances in her prime when suitors asked for her hand in marriage. The price she had to pay for being a dutiful daughter. On top of that, like the majority of young women in the difficult post-war period when most Southern men were in re-education camps, she had limited choices. Unless Nguyen was to get together with a Northerner after the war, which was her last option, she would stay unmarried. An attractive woman in her early 30s with traditional Vietnamese looks, Nguyen was petite and slim. Her oval face, long straight hair, warm almond-shaped eyes, short flat curving nose, and full dark lips added to her pleasant and graceful manner. Her dark brown skin was the result of a hard rural life in her childhood, as she had spent most of her time working in the rice field under the harsh sun and operating a coffee stall on the pavements of Saigon. Like millions of the most recent migrants from rural areas flooding to Saigon to find jobs, which were scarce in their hometowns, Nguyen was shy and timid. Saigon was established only in the early 1950s, but its reputation as the Pearl of Southeast Asia was well established by the 60s. The city's residents were seen as sophisticated and stylish, but also considered shrewd by some. The classical stereotype of city dwellers by which most peasants would feel intimidated. After her move here, she became a vendor in one of the regular cheap coffee stalls that sprouted up everywhere for the common laborers during the past few years. Nguyen was able to compensate her family for the extra income that rural life could not provide now. She had moved her coffee business from District 3 to District 1 into the front of Nguyen's living room 3 months ago due to the popular demand for refreshments here from the second-hand traders. After Nguyen was introduced by a friend, Mother agreed to let Nguyen use a quarter of their front of their house and collected rent from her. Nguyen's family was from the rural southwest region of Gat Ya, 300 kilometers from Saigon. After the fall, like most rural peasants and the rest of the country, they had to struggle hard to survive under the new communist system. With 2 hectares of wet land, they were able to live comfortably before 1975, if not extravagantly. The annual income from harvesting rice and raising a dozen pigs was enough to afford a pleasant life. It was not easy then, but the family was happy and content with their productivity. They were independent, enjoying little luxuries affordable to them through the income from working hard in the fields. The girls all attended school and helped in the rice paddy in their free time. 2 of Nguyen's sisters were boarders in the city of Cần Thơ, roughly 100 kilometers away, attending university there before the war ended. Their parents were very proud. It had not been easy to raise children and give them an education back then. It was impossible now. When Saigon was lost, everything fell into chaos. Along with freedom, their dreams for the future had vanished. The peasants' simple lifestyle was gone, and the straightforward logic of their existence was destroyed. They were as confused and lost as the rest of the population, if not more so. What had belonged to them before now belonged to the state. They did not understand why and had no protection to shield them from the vicious treatment. The further away from the capital cities of Hanoi and Saigon, the more savage was the ruling from the party. Each province had its own overlord, and each overlord imposed his own rules over his peasants. The rules from one province could be totally different to the next. In fact, there were no set rules or protocols in government policies. Local rules and state rules might be contradictory, leaving the citizens to face roadblocks in dealing with the authorities. There was no cooperation between central officers and local officers, and jurisdiction was an issue. No authority believed he should be under the control of another, and sometimes they hated each other. Matters were resolved on the mere whim of an arrogant Politburo or a committee of high-ranking party members, among whom the most highly educated might be just high school graduates. They were given positions in the management of the state as their reward for being longtime party members and guerrilla fighters during the war, regardless of their ability to govern. Not long before the fall, copying Mao's practice in China, the Vietnamese Communist Party started the policy of collectivism. All rice harvests from each individual family in the village or the whole province were collected in one big local mill for the state to repay foreign debts during the war. It was compulsory, and severe punishment would be imposed if the peasants did not obey. The Politburo of each region had the right to search their farm and storage area any time on only a rumor of holding back from their harvest. In those times, South Vietnamese people often dreaded the nights. When darkness fell was a time a knock on the door meant harassment and captivity. Lacking the capacity for self-defense was the worst fear. Being visited by the party Politburo after dark in the post-1975 era was for the Southerners worse than being visited by them during the war. "I don't believe it," Bin declared, the leader of the rural division of Gatya to Trien's father, Lam. Lam pleaded, "But this year's harvest is all there, esteemed officer, sir." He added the respectable addresser, sir, quickly to please Bin. He knew that the officers all desired to be addressed as sir or madam in situations like this. It made them feel important and magisterial. He was almost eager to bow low, in a sort of kowtow-like greeting a monarch. Lam would gladly try it all if he could avoid a nasty confrontation with the party Politburo. Lam was shaking. He wished that he were transparent and could be swallowed beneath the ground to escape the animosity so clearly displayed on the face of the party leader. Put a northern communist into a uniform and he would show you how to obey his orders, Lam thought regretfully. Even the guard had addressed Lam insolently, like a beggar, without much concern for his seniority. Yes, Lam mused. Even a guard could have shown some power over any person entering his realm of authority. Ironically, Lam reflected, it was contradictory to their doctrine, which boasted equal rights to everyone. The farmer class was especially considered the revolutionary class that helped solidify the Communist Party during the war. If he had any rights at all, Lam felt helpless. "Bullshit, you low-life peasants. How dare you lie to the Communist Party and to the great Uncle Ho? The harvest was supposed to be equal or greater than last year," Bin shouted. Bin loved the way Lam addressed him. It gave him ego satisfaction and brought to the surface his power complex. Standing up, his face blue with anger, Bin swore, "Fuck it, these stupid peasants. They had ruined his day." This was the limit. He had promised his mistress an expensive piece of material for her new ao yai this coming Tet, and one after another they had come in to tell him that their harvest was down to 60% compared to last year. How was he to report the grand total to his senior party members? He had planned to pocket at least 10% as per the previous year. Now this was even less than expected. Damn it, he had already boasted an increase in productivity to the Politburo of Ho Chi Minh City and an extravagant gift for Han, his mistress who was 20 years his junior. The realization meant a certain reprimand from the center and a reduction of his allocated bonus in the total harvest as well as a substantial loss. Don't you stupid peasants know that the order from party is to make sure your devotion to the Communist Party and Great Uncle Ho is carried out through your labor and rice. If you fail to provide the expected quota, then your devotion is under question. No doubt you're harboring anti-government activity by keeping some proportion of rice to give to criminals. That means a severe punishment from the party. Don't you idiots realize that at all? You're not going to get away with it that easily. I'm giving you a week to cough up the rest of the harvest. If there is none after the specified period, then you and your family will receive nothing for this year. You understand? He glared at Lamb and the rest of the farmers. Don't you think you can hide anything from the party, you fool? Every farm is going to be searched extensively, and you will be taken into custody and fined heavily if I find you are lying to me. Lamb and the others had no opportunity to protest. They were timid little mice, waiting for the disastrous blow. Lamb had learned from his previous experience that it was better to say nothing. The overlord had already sent out a decree, so the more he said, the worse his situation would become. This was the hardest part, but they all expected that. Of course, he and many of the farmers hid part of the rice harvest away for their family use. The party only returned 1/10 of their total harvest, or a certain amount proportionately to the number of family members. The rest of the value of the harvest was transformed into state coupons for purchasing other necessities in state stores like meat, poultry, oil, sugar, salt, and other sundry products. Lamb was sick of the system. This year he had decided to cultivate just enough rice for his family to consume. Bugger the state and their greedy party members. He was not going to be their slave anymore. He did not want to see the fruits of his labor and that of his wife and the girls go to bin and his mistress for free. Enough was enough. Let them come and search his farm. He was keeping over a ton of rice for their annual use, barely sufficient for his family of 8. Similarly, many farmers were beginning to feel frustrated by their ill treatment and the ill-gotten gain of the party members. They followed Lamb's example. The following year and many years after, the South experienced a shortage of rice that had never happened before.